Welcome to Para Orientation. We are so glad that you are becoming a member of the West Central Kansas Special Ed Cooperative. My name is Lindy McDaniel. I am the Assistant Special Ed Director, and part of my duties are to support paraprofessionals. So I will be the one that you would contact if you have any questions or concerns about working in the co-op. Along my side is Kyle Carlin. He is the Director of Special Ed. He's featured in this picture, obviously not photoshopped in. I was Googling for pictures for a welcoming page, and I couldn't find a creative one. So instead I used a picture of me and my husband at Vegas and just put Kyle's picture on it. So moving forward, I hope that you enjoy my sense of humor and are able to join us for all three modules as you get started as a paraprofessional. Module 1 is an introduction to the co-op, and that would be sections 1 and 2 of the handbook that you have that's in your binder. So you should have this binder with you. Sections 1 and 2 would be module 1. And then module 2 will be instructional supports, which is section 3. And then module 3 will be behavior supports, which is section 4 in your handbook. So we're going to start to put the pro into paraprofessional. What you're going to do today is be a part of the pre-service training. Pre-service is what you do before you get started with the job. And then you will also have lots of on-the-job training and in-service training. So on-the-job training will be directly related to the students that you work with. Some of the things that I shared today will be very generic. So take them with a grain of salt and think of them in terms of the population of students and the level of students that you will be serving. Our goal is that you will love what you do because you are good at what you do, and you will continue to love what you do because you're good at what you do. It's a wonderful cycle that really helps meet the needs of our students when we enjoy the work that we're doing. Through the modules today, I want you to answer the 3 questions on the from Para Orientation Reflection, and those would be in the front of your binder. So you'll turn those in addition to the agreement of responsibilities after you watch these modules. So we're going to start a little bit about who we are and who we serve. This is just a pie graph of the students and the types of students that we serve. We serve 327 learning disabled students, 182 speech language and developmental delays would be 118. A student can qualify for developmental delay up until the age of 9. And then at their 9th birthday, the school psych and the IEP team work together to determine if the child still qualifies for special education and what their new criteria would be. This just gives you an idea of the students that you might be working with, because it is nice to see kind of what we have in store for us. And this is where we serve. So you might be working in Ellis, La Crosse, Victoria, or Hayes, and under each of those you can see all the different buildings we serve in. We are a cooperative, which means that one entity, Hayes, is where we're funded through, so your paycheck will come from the Hayes district, but we are a co-op that also supports Victoria, La Crosse, and Ellis. So we're going to start by just watching a little video about why we do the work that we do.
I have spent my entire life either at the schoolhouse, on the way to the schoolhouse, or talking about what happens in the schoolhouse. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. And for the past 40 years, I've done the same thing. And so needless to say, over those years, I've had a chance to look at education reform from a lot of perspectives. Some of those reforms have been good, some of them have been not so good. And we know why kids drop out. We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. James Comer says that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. George Washington Carver says all learning is understanding relationships. Everyone in this room has been affected by a teacher or an adult. For years, I have watched people teach. I have looked at the best and I've looked at some of the worst. A colleague said to me one time, they don't pay me to like the kids. They pay me to teach a lesson. The kids should learn it. I should teach it. They should learn it. Case closed. Well, I said to her, you know, kids don't learn from people they don't like. She said, that's just a bunch of hooey. And I said to her, well, your year is going to be long and arduous, dear. Needless to say, it was. Some people think that you can either have it in you to build a relationship or you don't. I think Stephen Covey had the right idea. He said you ought to just throw in a few simple things, like seeking first to understand as opposed to being understood. Simple things like apologizing. You ever thought about that? Tell a kid you're sorry, they're in shock. I taught a lesson once on ratios. I'm not real good with math, but I was working on it. And I got back and looked at that teacher edition. I taught the whole lesson wrong. So I came back to class the next day and I said, look, guys, I need to apologize. I taught the whole lesson wrong. I'm so sorry. They said, that's okay, Miss Pearson. You were so excited. We just let you go. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? And it was difficult. It was awfully hard. How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class because I am the best teacher and you are the best students. They put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? We have to show the other classes how to do it. So when we walk down the hall, people will notice us. So you can't make noise. You just have to strut. And I gave him a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. And so I gave a quiz, 20 questions. Student missed 18. I put a +2 on this paper and a big smiley face. He said, Miss Pearson, is this an F? I said, yes. He said, then why'd you put a smiley face? I said, because you on the roll. You got 2 right, you didn't miss them all. I said, and when we review this, won't you do better? He said, yes, ma'am, I can do better. You see, -18 sucks all the life out of you. +2 said, I ain't all bad. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. And kids can be cruel. And so she kept those things in her desk, and years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never absent. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationships. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know it. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
All right, so that was just a quick clip to share with you how everyone needs and deserves a champion. As you can see in this pie chart, I have all the jobs and positions that are hired by West Central Kansas Special Ed Co-op, and you can see over half of the pie chart is paraprofessionals. The work that paraprofessionals do is outstanding, is amazing, and is super, super meaningful. Paraprofessionals are often the ones who get to build those one-on-one connections with students, and so your job is very, very important, and we want to help you be a champion for the students you serve. So that's what the rest of the modules will do. So how to champion, we're going to start by sections 1 and 2 in your handbook. And with those sections, we are going to go through just how to be professional and some of the logistics in this first module, and then we'll move into some other supportive strategies. So you'll get your work agreement through the special ed office, and you will actually get it through Skyward, which is our encompassing web service that also is where you will clock in and clock out. All paras will sign a work agreement that covers the expected hours to work and the wage to be paid. Any differentiation of that work agreement must be assigned and by the supervising teacher and approved by the special ed director, which would be Kyle. On occasions, trainings, team meetings, and special events might warrant circumstances in which you will have additional hours. For example, this orientation is an additional hour, and you might have team meetings. We allot team meetings to support you and being a team with your supervising teacher. Twice a month, you can do each of those for 30 minutes with your teacher's directive, so those would be additional hours as well. How you will clock in and clock out each day is through Skyward. I'm going to see if I can click in and show you how that would be done. So you'd click the website, usd489.com. And then under menu, you're going to go to staff. Oh, I apologize. That is not right. Under menu, you are going to scroll down to staff resources and then go to Skyward resources, and that is where you would learn how to clock in and clock out, how to submit leave, and all of those features to support you in the work that you do. All right, your attendance is very important to us. So when you attend, our students are able to be served, and if you're not able to attend, and we know things come up, but when you're not able to support our students, it does have a big significant impact. And so this is also sharing how many days leave you have. You have 2 days of leave to start, and then 1 per every month you work. So if you start working at the beginning of the school year, you would have 11 days in total. You do need to notify your supervising teacher and put all leave in Skyward. Being a paraprofessional, all of these are pretty self-explanatory and they are in your handbook, but we just want to remind you that you should arrive on time, dress appropriately, and appropriately in some cases might be very casual, in other cases it might be a little bit more formal casual, but for the most part it is just making sure your top and your bottom are covered as you might bend down or bend over to help students, and we want to make sure we are respectful. Communicate in a timely manner with your supervising teacher. And be present, positive, respectful, and empathetic. We never know what is going on in the lives of others, so just having some empathy and grace is super important. And maintain professional relationships and confidentiality. Have an open mind, be flexible, and willing to learn every day. We learn every day with our students. Every student, every day, 489 is one of our missions. So under the confidentiality section in your handbook, you will find different things that you need to make sure that you do. Our IEPs and our student needs are protected by the FERPA Act, which is the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. So anytime you have access to a student's IEP or maybe a snapshot of what the student needs to work on, you want to make sure that you protect those records, making sure you put them back, give them back to the teacher turned upside down, not leaving them on their desk open, also locked up at the end of the day, those types of things. Also, don't share with anyone. Your teacher will be in charge of sharing information. And then keep confidentiality when you're at home as well. You can talk about your day in generalities, but making sure that you don't use student names, and share information on a need-to-know basis only. So only with those that need to know it. The whole staff lounge does not need to know about the work you're doing with Johnny or Susie. Pictures, photos, and social media. No personal cell phones are used at work. There are some situations where cell phones are used to communicate with your supervising teacher throughout the school day if you're out in inclusion and you might work with a behavior student, and that is appropriate. We just want to use it mildly and make sure that we're present and engaged with students whenever possible. Do not take any pictures of students on your personal device. There are student devices in most of our buildings. So if, for example, you would be going on a field trip with a student or something, you might be able to use with your supervising teacher's directive, maybe an iPad of the students to take those pictures to be added to Seesaw. Do not post anything about the students that you work with, photos or otherwise, on social media, and be aware and professional with social media relationships. It is probably not easy. We are in a small community, so you might be Facebook friends with families that you serve. Just make sure that you are mindful and have professional relationships, and don't necessarily add families that you're now meeting through the work that you're doing. This would be just having those relationships that were previous relationships, keep them confidential and respectful with your new work. General communication practices: be kind, assume positive intent, avoid gossip, discretion, empathy, and empathetic conversation, school appropriate and student focused. Oftentimes it can get a little bit wearing and exhausting working with students every day. We just ask that you are positive and you offer the information that needs to be offered to those that will help solve the problems with you, and to be student focused. If we're focusing on the students rather than all the other gossip and things that go on at school, we are going to be much more likely to be successful than if we are gossiping about the things that are going on in the school environment. Chain of command and chain of responsibility. This just shows a picture of who you would go to first. So if a problem arises, let's say between a para and yourself, as another para, the good rule of thumb would be to go to that para first and have a conversation with them. And then from then on, if that didn't get resolved, you'd go to your supervising teacher. If it doesn't get resolved there, then the issue could be taken to your building principal and then to myself or to Mr. Carlin, the special ed director. You just want to make sure that you use that chain of command and you really are resolving problems in a timely and professional manner with the people that it concerns versus going above their head. Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. Just remembering that when a problem arises, go to the person that is a part of it and come up with a solution together rather than gossiping about it or taking it to inappropriate chains of command. And then communicating with families. When you're communicating with families, just presume competence and have the philosophy that the families are doing the best they can with the resources they have. A lot of families that we serve have things going on in them that we couldn't even imagine what that would be like. So just being empathetic and really supportive to the students and the families. but making sure that you're sharing just what you can. So what this looks like is you will not share IEP goal updates or progress or behavior concerns with the family. If you happen to be at pickup or drop off or see the family in the community, you're welcome to say hello to them, but you wouldn't speak of their IEP needs and goals because that all comes from the supervising teacher and their general education teacher. You can speak in generalities like, oh, Johnny was really focused during math. I'm so proud of him, because we do want families to recognize that you are part of their IEP team and that you love and care about their students, but we just don't want to get into the finer details that our supervising teachers are in charge of. And then communication with teachers, making sure it's respectful and timely, and do not overcommit on the behalf of someone else. So oftentimes in your role as paraprofessional, you might actually see the general education teachers more frequently than your supervising teacher. And so just making sure that everything goes through the chain of command. So for example, if the teacher says, hey, I would really like you to do it this way, you can say, oh, let me check with my supervising teacher and see if that pertains and would work for the student's IEP goals and their needs. So just always working together as a team. A lot of times the gen ed teacher has wonderful things to offer, as does the special ed teacher, but they don't see the child in real time in all those situations, and you do. So trying to give that feedback, but also sharing information in a respectful and timely manner that is always student focused. So it's always about building the student's progress and strengths. And then communicating and using professionalism with students. This looks different at different age levels. If you work with high school students, you want to make sure that you are friendly but not friends. That goes for all stages, but it's a little bit different at the high school level. Just making sure that you have a respectful relationship that has boundaries. In the younger grades, it's also important to maintain those boundaries and making sure that you're not creating a force field around the student. Sometimes when you're working super close with a student, their peers might see you as that student's friend or that student's mom, and so then they're less likely to come up and play with that student or engage or talk with that student. So just making sure that you are respectful of your students' need and desire to be a friend to others. All right, now we're going to get into para work responsibilities. We must recognize that the classroom teacher has the ultimate responsibility for the instruction and the behavior of the students and follow the direction of the supervising teacher. Realize that you may be assigned to a particular classroom or grade, but you may be asked to work with other classes and or age groups at any given time. Assist students in performing activities initiated by the teacher. Supervise children in the hallway, lunchroom, playground, etc. Reinforce learning in small groups or with individuals while the teacher works with other students. You might refer concerns expressed by parents, students, and others to the classroom teacher or to the supervising teacher. The teacher is responsible, remember, for communicating progress and concerns with parents, not the paraprofessional. So just making sure that you follow your chain of command. On occasion, you might perform clerical tasks such as attendance, typing, or copying. You could assist the teachers in observing, recording, and charting behavior, collecting data to see if the student is making progress. Assist the teacher with crisis problems or behavior management under the guidelines of the student support plan or behavior support plan. You may carry out instructional programs designed by the teacher, work with the teacher to develop class schedules, or assist in field trips and special activities. You might help with read-alouds or listen to a child read, grade and hand out papers, assist in creating flashcards, posters, and bullet boards, etc. You might take care of students in emergencies or with illnesses, such as vomiting, toileting, or accidents. You might supervise students as they arrive during eating breakfast, eating lunch, getting on the bus, and at the conclusion of the day. You might supervise in the restroom, straighten the room at the end of the day. Some of you might participate in the crisis prevention intervention strategies after receiving training. And so that is specific to those people, and we'll get into that a little bit further in the modules, but that is specific for people who work with the students who have significant behaviors, either in an alternative classroom placement or maybe in our life skills programs. You will also need to complete your timesheets in your time clock on Skyward and carry out any responsibilities deemed appropriate for your position. Avoid situations where you're alone and in a closed area with students. Stay busy. If you have downtime, ask your teacher if you can help with anything. A lot of our teachers have to-do tubs or bins of things that can be worked on when maybe a student is out absent or the schedule has changed. And then move around the room to avoid just sitting for extended periods of time. Remember, when you are engaged and present with students, you're going to make more of an impact with their learning. And making sure that you do realize that you are a mandated reporter. This is meaning that if you see any suspected abuse or neglect, you are a mandated reporter and you will need to call that in. It's important to let your supervising teacher know that you have seen something that maybe is concerning to you, so she or he can walk you through how that needs to look as the next steps. And then work as a team. Teams create rules and procedures to be followed by all members, and team members' roles are clarified and discussed. Team members work to increase the skill of all members. So sometimes you might be, your supervising teacher might find that you have great skills or strengths in a specific subject or with a specific student. And so you might be asked to support others in learning how to work with that student or with that subject, or you might be assigned to do that subject or with that student more frequently because of the skills that you have. And then acknowledge that the supervising teacher is in charge of your team, but you guys are all active members. Team members are efficient and respectful of their teammates' time. So just making sure you are timely when you have team meetings and timely when you are coming on shift or coming back from a break. When a team works together, a student can make 2 years' progress in 1 year's time. I find that to be a very interesting and very exciting statistic, because as we know, we have lots of paraprofessionals and lots of people on our students' IEP teams. And when we work together for the common goal of supporting that student with the student's progress goals, whether they're academic or behavior, it can really have a strong impact on that student's future. So lastly, I did want to share, in April or May, your supervising teacher will fill out a staff evaluation for you. Sometimes they may do them sooner if there's an area of concern or something that needs to be worked on, but for the most part they're done in the spring, and then you will be asked to sign it and review it with your supervising teacher. It's also required that you get 20 hours of in-service throughout the school year if you started in August, or it's 2 hours for every month you work. So if you start in November, you would just calculate 2 hours for every month from November to May. And that will be filled out on the log, the in-service log that is inside your binder, and it's in the pocket, and you will just turn that into Karen Smith or your supervising teacher at the end of the school year. And you will get 1, if not 2, depending on how long it takes you to do the reflection for this training and how long each of the recorded videos are for this orientation. That concludes Module 1. Complete question 1 on your reflection and continue on to Module 2.